Morning, everybody. Hope you all are doing well today. I just want to mention a couple things. First and foremost, I am terribly sorry about not being able to record these last 2 weeks between traveling as well as jury duty. I just have not been in my office that often. I've missed a few things that I really wish I hadn't, and including trying to keep up with your papers and making sure that we're in good shape for the upcoming final paper. So I want to talk to you all about it, as I received a couple of emails concerning this particular paper, and I know some of you are really nervous about it, and I want to kind of calm your thoughts a little bit, help you out in regards to making the paper a little bit more manageable. So I want to talk about that today. And, we've got some other things to talk about over the course of the week. So just be prepped and ready to keep reading, and we'll get this thing sorted out and be ready to go. So that said, I do want to mention one thing. I have graded your last reflection paper. Again, I know it took me a while. Sorry about that. I want to mention real quick with those that I didn't go into the paper and corrected every grammatical error. This is the kind of thing I really want y'all to start looking at your APA, MLA, grammatical errors, that kind of thing, and really approach it, because this is something that I don't want to spend every single time, correcting the exact same thing over and over again. So look through your papers and check what are some things that we can continuously do better over the course of this semester. And if we do that, the final paper, will succeed in this case. There are some things. I think the biggest one is still writing how you talk and using very personal examples. While I don't mind that, I would encourage you to use them sparingly, for especially for this particular paper. So, I want you to look at it more of an industry or societal or even local issue and talk about it from that perspective. So, and the reason for that is, anecdotal evidence usually can be a good start for much research. However, it also can be a little bit of a hindrance in terms of overall interpretation, overall generalizations, that kind of thing. So just be really wary of that. It's not something to be overly concerned about, but it is something I want everybody to keep in mind while they're writing this last paper. So I have gotten a few questions. So let me get into this. I have gotten a few questions about the paper, and I don't know if my directions were as good as I wanted them to be. So I wanted to give a clarification that I gave some people in an email, and just direct it in a way to help you out in this case. So first and foremost, this paper is really taking the practical applications from what we've learned in class from a theoretical perspective and putting it into a practical venue. So what I mean by that is, when you are looking at this particular paper, I want you to think about things, again, that are industry related, or that are societal related, with our community related, whatever it may be, something, but first and foremost, something that you are interested in. So that's why I have in here that find a topic that interests you: music, media, sports, politics, movies, usually something that involves communication. But the good thing is that communication is pretty ubiquitous. So these areas all have communication levels in there in terms of what you can study. And this can be a myriad of things. So, for instance, if you wanted to create a media plan, that's fine. If you wanted to create a creative plans book, that's fine. If you wanted to do something within public relations, that's great. If you wanted to write a research paper or like a lit review, that's awesome. So whatever it may be, run it by me if you're confused. If you're going through these topics and you're not 100% sure, run it by me. And I'll be happy to kind of guide you in the direction of where you might need to go on this. So find a problem within the field that you want to ask a question about. So political message framed in one channel, news channel versus another, censorship in music, rhetorical messages in specific film genres. As long as it's a communication problem, that is fine. And again, run it by me. Let me know. The easiest way is to find a problem and ask a question to solve said problem. Now, whether or not you solve it or not is going to be a completely different story. And I'm not going to grade you on whether or not you solved it, but whether you approached it in such a manner that it could be solved. So this is an area where understanding the field and understanding some of the areas within whatever genre you pick, whatever topic you pick, will be beneficial in this case. So the next thing is to go from find theories that can help you explain this problem or could offer a solution to the topic. And you can use more than one. So, and I don't want to limit you to just theories within persuasion. I think there's a few people that kind of got caught up in that and saying, well, I can only use one and I can only use a persuasion theory. No, that's not it at all. Actually, I encourage you to go cross-disciplinary, go in different areas. If you've got something, again, in music that you want to explore, please use cross-disciplinary research. Please look at other journal articles. Please look at other pop articles, whatever it may be. Make sure to do that. However, don't forget about your persuasion theory. It needs to at least be one of them. And so that's kind of the area within these first three things in terms of gathering your bases. I think this will be the most common, especially given how I've read your papers so far. And there's a lot of good topics. In fact, I was really impressed with some of the ideas that y'all had in, and this is not surprising. I'm just saying that I was really, I was really encouraged by some of the ideas y'all had, and I want y'all to keep that up. And part of that can actually stem from those ideas that you've had in the first place. So, it can be similar to what you've already written, or you can take something from a prior paper and expand on it. So if the theory driven by, like some of y'all wrote about some areas within emotion and theory of planned behavior, for instance, I got a few papers that kind of touched base on that particular instance. Why not apply it? Why not take this information and use it towards any practical application? And so, again, that's probably going to be the most common that I see. Now, again, you can run different ideas by me, and I encourage you to. But, use those as an example to kind of help understand it a little bit better. So that's those three areas I wanted to talk about. The next is the layout. So it's an introduction. Why is it important? And what is your topic? Literature, what are some theories that can help explain your topic more in depth? Question, what is it that you're trying to look at? These can also be, as we put down here, proposals. How can we tie this all together? I mean, one of the papers I wrote that I have in a book chapter is about propositions. Now, granted, is this going to run across the board? No, of course not. It's calm. It's a theory. It doesn't inherently have to run across the board. It just has to have this sense of consistency across the board that we see many people doing it. So again, it doesn't have to be completely axiomatic that it's all going to happen in this one direction. We can obviously have different people doing different things because our brains all work differently. However, theory can test pretty well across the board. Now, I will make an update. I think a lot of people were really, really concerned about the page numbers. I'm going to bump it down a little bit, say about 6 to 8 pages. I still want it to be a very comprehensive conversation that you write. And if you want to make it 10 pages, write 10 pages. I am fully on board with that. But I realized that a lot of people were flipping out on writing 10 pages. So I'm going to mark it down to 6 to 8, help you out a little bit in that regard. But because of that, I want you to make sure that within this page limit, the rationale is tight. Don't dawdle a little bit. I can't believe I just used the word dawdle, but don't dawdle in, examples and so forth. This is all information that I'm going to be relatively familiar with. So you're presenting it to an audience that is familiar with your topic, or the theories at least, not necessarily with your topic. And so feed into that. Feed into the fact that I will probably know what your theory is. And because of that, the main thing you need to look into is going into your topic. So let me show you a little bit of what I'm talking about here. If I can find... There we go. So I'm using a piece. Now, granted, this is a piece that I wrote, um, but I think the impact is there in terms of understanding what you might be looking at. So this is in your As You Learn, and this was something I wrote based on what's called socialization process. So this is an organizational communication theory. So when I first took on this project, we were talking about socialization, and socialization in this case basically states that, you know, within the first 6 to 9 months of any employment opportunity, this is for you to be socialized within this organization. So there's a lot of things in terms of learning. There's a lot of things in terms of starting to get to know the ropes, getting to know people. What are mannerisms? You know, it's that thing where, like, if you were to go across the overseas and experience another culture for a week, it's significantly different. Whereas if you experienced it over the course of a couple months, or maybe even a few years, it's drastically different from again, a couple weeks. And so in this case, you know, this is where it started, was this socialization process. So this is where I began. But I approached it in terms of talking about what's called social balance. And I took a lot of different theories. So again, this is something you can use here. So my idea came from craft beer industries because I talked to several people in breweries and talked to them about what was their socialization process like. Not really in so many words, but basically tell them, how do you like your job? What do you like about it? What is it that you know, fueled you to do this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's where I started. And so I got through a lot of pop sources and talked about this area of the craft beer industry. So you can see here, this is probably about 3 pages that we're looking at here. Yours does not need to be nearly as long in general, but it does talk about all these things within the craft beer industry in terms of what does it mean to have this culture, what does it mean to be a part of this group, etc. And so I approach it from a couple of different areas. So I approach it from social identity, wrote a proposition, personal identity, wrote a proposition, that cut off, identification, contrasting elements, and then it concludes into balance theory. And so again, this is all bringing these theorems together. And every single one of them, if you read this, every single one of them leads back to breweries. And so again, I use it from an organizational level to be able to help understand it. Now, this is kind of the third reflection paper and the final paper combined. So if you take that route, this is in so many ways what it might look like. I don't expect you to actually draw up a couple of figures. I did in this case to help kind of make myself understand it a little bit more. But again, these are some areas that I want you to take into consideration when you're writing this paper, is really going over what these propositions may mean. And again, the third reflection paper might be a great starting point to understanding how you might want to approach this paper. Take those theorems that you've combined together, that you've explored, and work with them. Find something that is, again, through industry, societal. I know I'm beating a dead horse with that statement, but use those to your advantage, that you've already got a few pages written down, and then build off that. But again, if it's going to be 6 to 8 pages, it needs to be tightly written. So please keep that in mind when you are going over your paper, when you are proposing. That's going to be a major consideration that I want everybody to think about when they're going over this information. So that's basically it. Like I said, read over this paper. It might give you a little bit of insight in terms of what you might want to do with this. If you've got any questions, please do not hesitate to email me. I'd be happy to talk with you about bouncing ideas off. And again, we'll make it a little more manageable for you. And if you've got any questions, like I said, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. Pay attention on Thursday, because I'm going to be talking about Taylor's 6-segment strategy wheel, which some people might want to take into consideration when they're doing their project, especially if you're advertising. So you all have a wonderful day. Keep me posted, and I will talk with you later this week. Thanks. Bye.